Next to following Jesus, the best decision, honestly, I've ever made is choosing to marry my husband, my best friend, the love of my life. So, since both of my babies are asleep and I've already taken a bath so early, well, it's not really early, it's already late afternoon, but still early for, hands on moms like me. And since I'm having my personal coffee time, also my new microphone has arrived. I thought might as well, film a podcast and put the microphone to the test. And also I really miss talking to you guys. It feels like a long time already since I last filmed. So yeah, I just want to say hi and to have a quick catch up. So earlier today, I posted this cue editing while my husband was drinking his coffee. My firstborn, my son, was making a shark airplane out of his blocks, and my baby girl was just sleeping beautifully and peacefully. And I was just looking around the house, looking at them, and I realized, wow! So this is now the fruit of obeying God, to saying yes to marriage when God said it was time, almost 5 years ago. So we married at 23. We welcomed our first child at 24, and we welcomed our second one at 27. So now we have a 3-year-old boy, almost 4 soon, and we also have almost a half-year-old little girl. At least in our circles, we're among the young couples that got married earlier, in our early 20s. Like, I think the trend now is towards the latter part of your 20s, then you get married. But for us, at least in our circles, as I've already said, we're among those who married younger, because we married in 23. If you were to ask me, is building a family, a hard thing? Does it get difficult or overwhelming? Absolutely. It does get difficult. There are really, really difficult days, especially, when you're raising children, because of course there has to be sacrifices when you're welcoming new members to the family, right? A marriage itself is filled with a lot of sacrifices, and imagine just how that sacrifice doubles and triples as you add members to the family along the way. So absolutely, and it's the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life, and I'm still, in the thick of it. And I can honestly say yes, it could get overwhelming. There are days that I just don't know anymore, what to do, how to go through it. But praise be to God, we're still here, and we're we see the blessing even in the difficulties. But if you were to ask me, is it worth it? A thousand times, I'd say yes, yes, and yes, and yes again. Even if I'm going through, tough situations as a mom, as a wife, I still honestly say it. Yes, it's still the best decision that I've ever made, next to following Jesus. Building this life, with my husband is still the best thing that I could do in this earthly life. And I say that because I know, especially now, we're 5 years down the road, 5 years along our marriage. Sorry, English is not my first language, but you know what I mean. So, yeah, especially now, I could say that this is this is the work itself, marriage and building a family, is my reward. I can honestly say that I feel, there has never been a time in my life, no, earthly wise, that I could wholeheartedly say that I am right where I belong, that I am doing exactly what I'm called to do. And yes, so I'm saying that in that context, that because God led us to marry, because God called us to marriage and building a family, it's the best thing ever. It's the greatest joy of my life. And I honestly believe that it's my husband's as well. I always ask him, being the kulit wife. It's a Filipino term when someone's being cheeky. I hope not annoying, but I'd constantly, check him if he's happy, if he feels the same way. Well, actually, he expresses it. Um, he initiates expressing that appreciation first, and I just want to. I just like to slightly annoy him with these kulit questions. But yeah, why am I sharing this? Because I'm hoping that our story could give encouragement to couples who think they're still young, or you feel that um, marriage is such a scary thing, and building a family is such a scary thing, and maybe some things are holding you back from stepping into the faith into stepping in faith into the next season of your relationship, which is marriage and building a family, because you're intimidated by it. So yeah, so if indeed, this is my encouragement to you, at least from my experience, if indeed God is calling you and leading you to marry and build a family for him, do so in faith. Okay, because you just choose your heart. Practically speaking, everything is hard. Whether you marry young or you marry later, in your later years, it will still be difficult. At least that's what my husband told me, especially when I was, filled with anxieties coming into marriage. And he told me, if you're scared, if it will be difficult, I'll tell you straightforwardly now that it will be difficult. So okay, so yeah, so his proposal to me is that not the most romantic. It was really straightforward with everything, but I'm thankful that he did that. At least I was somehow oriented into what I was going into, but at the same time, it's a paradox. It's difficult, but it's also the most freeing and fulfilling thing ever. If, as I've already said, if indeed God is calling you to marry, even to marry young, yes, it's probably the most difficult thing that you'll ever do, but at the same time, it's the most freeing when you just say yes to God's call to building a family, to marrying the person that He has given you. And so, yeah, this is not a pressure to marry young. I'm not saying that you should marry, because, of course, you should not approach these things carelessly. These are lifetime decisions. It will really determine how your life will go. So, of course, you should also be careful in approaching these things, but at the same time, I think there's also wisdom in not, delaying pursuing these things unnecessarily. So, what am I trying to say? Okay, so one of my announcements, when I announced that, okay, I'm going to marry, there was a particular circle that asked me striking questions. They were striking because I couldn't believe that I was being even asked with those questions. So the question was, because they didn't know my husband to be, so they asked if he had a job. Yes, he had. They asked if he already had built a house, and I've said, of course, not yet. He's a single man, and he's also young like me, so he probably doesn't have that money to build a house for himself. And the next question was, does he already have, a car? And I said no. Also, his family has their own family car, but not his own. And I was just asking. I was just answering politely, because maybe that's really, a sincere question. Sincere questions they had. But I was also stunned, at the questions. So here I am, announcing that I'm going to marry something very, very important. And the first questions you ask me are about these superficial things. So again, um, I'm not singling out people individually if they do think like that, but as a culture that's been, prominent right now, even among church circles. Why are we so fixated on the material things when it comes to approaching a calling? I see really marriage as a calling as heavy as this, as important as this, and just, um, just equated to the superficial. So I think the better questions asked would be, of course, spiritually, how is this person's relationship with the Lord? But at least, practical na lang, what kind of character does this person have? Instead of asking the more important questions, we are limiting our questions when it comes to marriage to just material things. I'm not saying that it's not important. Of course, there has to be some level of preparation going into marriage and building a family. But more than that, there are even more important things. Like I've already said, spiritual maturity. How is this person walking with the Lord? Is he or she being faithful with obeying God's word? Is this person tested? Has this person already been tested through the fire when it comes to character and values? So, yeah, and when it comes to finances also, I'm saying this now that we've been blessed to build a house which we had to leave because of my husband's calling for the ministry. So you see, we can try to prepare, okay, the best way that we can, but the nature of building a family and growing children, everything's just unexpected. So if you just limit your sight to something short-sighted, okay, you would really be frustrated to find out, okay, so I was preparing for all these material things, but I haven't prepared for the more important ones, like um, spiritual discipleship. How will we pursue to be the people that God called us to be as husband and wife? Is this person, trustworthy? Especially as women, can I really trust this person um, to lead me to the Lord, to God's heart for my life? Or can I also be gracious to this person? How about me? How's my character? Am I also growing in the fruit of the Spirit to be the helper this man needs? So, what I'm saying is, even among Christian circles, the culture around marriage has been um, so honestly sad because it's just been, you're downsizing and minimizing a very important thing, a very profound thing, into just the material. Yeah, which, I understand that it's often a tendency that we struggle with as human beings because we are fixated on what we can see instead of um yeah, the intangible things like purpose, fruitfulness. When it comes to um kingdom work, I could say that, marrying my husband has multiplied our kingdom work, because now there are two of us partnering together as we submit to the Lord, obey the Lord in ministry. And firstly, we minister to the Lord, we minister to one another, and we minister to our children. So, when it comes to kingdom work, God multiplied it through marriage because He called us and led us to marry, and we said yes to that, and now we see the multiplication. Yes, and I, not only in the intangible things, but obviously intangible things. We started with just the two of us, and now there are four of us. So yeah, it's really multiplication, and I'm so blessed to be able to experience that multiplication in every area, not only in number, which I'm so happy and blessed about, because we asked God for fruitfulness in our marriage with children. And I also, as I've already said, also in ministry, God has just, multiplied our touch points, because now we can understand the hearts of fathers, the hearts of mothers, how to become parents. And we can now tap into that ministry, um, now I can talk about these things also to you, fellow moms, because of that obedience. Na we just got married even when it was scary for us at 23 years old. So yeah. So what was my point? Yeah, I'm just chica chica here, but you understand my heart, right? You get what I mean. So yes. So and now we have wonderful children that we also get to preach the word to, children that we can disciple unto the Lord Jesus. And that would not happen, all these would not happen, hadn't we say yes almost 5 years ago to the call of marriage. So yeah, at at that time when I was asked that question, although I was already, I was already my decision to marry was already cemented, and I was not distracted by those questions. I did not feel that I was not qualified to get married, or my husband wasn't qualified to be the head of our household just because we don't have a car or a home or a house. Okay, so yeah, we always have a home wherever God leads us. But yeah, we don't have all the material things. I did not feel that because um, God was already teaching me to trust Him and obey Him. Marrying into um, getting into marriage with that sense of obedience, from a perspective of obedience, rather than like I have everything figured out, or I have everything, I got everything together, because you really won't. We'll never be able to figure everything out, because what room will there be for faith to grow and take root if we know everything? And that's what my husband told me. Just give room for our faith to grow. And that's why it has been, the banner that I've been carrying into my journey as a mother, also mothering by faith, because that's what my husband told me. We will become parents by faith. We will marry by faith. At first, that was such an insult. I felt like that was an insult to my adultness, because so you mean you don't have a plan? You're gonna marry me and you don't have a plan? And he said, "It's not that I don't have a plan. My plan is to obey God as He leads and take the steps as we go. But if you ask me for a 10-year plan, 5-year plan, I wouldn't be able to show you." That's what yeah, we had a conversation somewhere along the line like that, of that. So I'm so thankful, that I obeyed the Lord through the leading of my husband, because now I get him. Now, 5 years into our marriage, and we would look at each other and he'd tell me, so you see now the fruit of our obedience, the fruit of the faith that we had back then, even if, it was so unlikely for us, the young and inexperienced people that we were. And I said, yes, I see now. And I'm so glad I obeyed. I'm so glad that I took that step of faith now. It's the greatest joy of my life, really. That's why maybe, I can't stop talking about it. I cannot stop sharing about this beautiful call of God. And I still believe in God's design for manhood, womanhood, marriage, and families. And I'm so thankful to be given that privilege to even, experience this. So it's my heart to also share my testimony and my encouragement to people who are once in our shoes. I mean, to people who are in the same situation. I couldn't frame it properly, but I hope you feel my sincerity. That if you are now, in the situation that we were once in, okay, if you are resonating with the 23-year-old me, and you feel like God is leading you into this new season of marriage and building a family, but you don't have money, you don't have connections, you don't have the experiences and the expertise that you feel like you have to gain first, the best thing, really, is obedience in faith. And I can say that now, 5 years later, that I'm so thankful for that challenge that was presented to me, and that I said yes to marriage. And yeah, and I really hope that, especially in church and our Christian circles, we would have a more guidance on this area, because I feel like this is such this is a demographic that's so underserved. It's a ministry that's almost non-existent, and at least in our circles. Now, why are we not um, talking about this, especially if there are indeed people in our congregations, young people that are desiring to marry young and start building a family young? Most of the advices we'd get, even in churches, is maybe, from my observation, mostly they dismiss that desire, is even if that person already finished his or her college education. Most often those desires get dismissed just because of the material things also that they don't have, or because of maybe they think that career wise they have not advanced yet. At least advance in your career first before you build a family. But as I've been always prefacing, no, if God is leading that person, as it were the case with us, if God is leading that person to that, why shouldn't we give the necessary guidance and encouragement for them to do so? If they're being called to that, then let us not hinder them from obedience, from obeying that call of God in their lives. Instead, let's pour on our wisdom, our experiences, our support to them to see God's purposes fulfilled in their life. And if that, especially if that includes marriage and family building, homemaking. So, yeah, I could say that from experience, because I also feel like we were underserved as young couple who wanted to go into marriage. There's no, um, there's not an active ministry for guiding these young men and women. And I pray that, if you watch this video, it's a lot of my chica chica, but I hope that it will open, and the conversation also, at least in your circles, in your congregation, instead of just people dabbling into this season and stage, feeling like they're left behind, or they're alone, or instead of them not having that support. Why can't we minister to them? That's something that I wished I would have also experienced. um, we're so thankful that our parents, both sides, my grandfather was very supportive of us. They embraced our call to this and actually encouraged us to pursue it, regardless of the many things that we had to do without, because we're young and we didn't have any. Even now, um, the the growing a family, your needs are dynamic. Of course, your needs are always changing and growing. So that's just it. That's just how it is. You'll just keep um, diligently working. Just have to keep working diligently to provide for the needs of your family. And I think that it's there's always challenges whether you marry young or late. But if you are called to marry young, I just hope that this would minister to you. And one of these days soon, we'll have more open conversations about this, and that we'll have actually an active ministry for the young and women who desire to build a family and marry earlier. Yeah, we can pray for you, and we will not judge you. will not judge you if you indeed want to marry. That's not a bad thing. And that's not a bad thing also if that's if you want to pursue building a family rather than a career. You know, you have different callings in life, and we should be approaching things from a perspective of obedience rather than just striving. You can strive and do your best for the things that you set your mind on, but if it's not God's calling for you, and if it's not where God is leading you, you'll just, struggle, striving aimlessly because you're not in a perspective and path of obedience. So obedience really is important. Bye bye.